The lawyer's voice droned on, but all I could hear was the pounding in my chest as he read the clause that bound me to Amber Harrington for life. In the event of merger, Shiloh Bennett will enter into marriage with Amber Harrington to seal the alliance, he said. And in that instant, my carefully constructed world of denial collapsed, because this was exactly the plot twist I'd written in my unpublished novel, to exorcise the memory of our forbidden nights together. My parents sat across the polished oak table in the downtown Manhattan conference room, their faces set in that familiar mask of determination, the one they wore whenever the family business teetered on bankruptcy again. Dad's hand rested on Mom's shoulder like a silent command, while my younger brother fidgeted with his phone, oblivious or maybe just relieved it wasn't him being sacrificed. Amber didn't even blink. She leaned back in her leather chair, ice blue eyes locked on mine, the same eyes that had once softened in the dim light of her penthouse when she whispered my name like it was the only word that mattered. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to tell everyone in this sterile room that the woman they were selling me to was the same one I'd loved in secret for 6 months before fear ripped us apart. But the words stuck in my throat, choked by the weight of the contract and the mountain of debt my father's tech startup owed her conglomerate. $3 million. That was the price tag on my freedom. Amber's company, Harrington Dynamics, had swallowed ours whole in the last board meeting, and now this marriage clause was the final nail. It's just business, Shiloh, Dad had said that morning over coffee, as if arranging a wedding to a woman I'd once kissed in the rain outside a Brooklyn bookstore was the same as signing a loan extension. My hands trembled under the table. In my novel, the protagonist woke up engaged to the ruthless CEO and spent the entire book fighting the pull of a love that society deemed impossible. I had written it as therapy after Amber ended things with a single text. This can't continue. Not in our world. Now the fiction was bleeding into reality, and I was the fool who'd scripted my own cage. Amber finally spoke, her voice clipped and professional, the same tone she used in quarterly earnings calls. The ceremony is set for next month at the Hamptons estate. No press until the merger is finalized. She didn't look at me when she said it, but I felt the undercurrent, the unspoken challenge. Was she enjoying this? Or was the cold mask hiding the same storm I'd seen the night we first crossed the line from colleagues to something dangerous? The meeting ended in a blur of handshakes and legal jargon. I bolted from the room before anyone could stop me, my heels clicking against the marble floor like a frantic heartbeat. Outside on the bustling sidewalk, the autumn wind whipped through my coat, carrying the scent of street vendors and exhaust. I pulled out my phone and stared at the screen, thumb hovering over Amber's contact. One call. One question. Why? But I already knew the answer. Her company needed the optics of a stable family merger to appease conservative investors, and my parents needed the cash to avoid foreclosure on our Long Island home. Love had nothing to do with it. Or did it? The memory of her fingers tracing my spine in the dark flashed unbidden, sending a shiver down my back that had nothing to do with the cold. By the time I reached my cramped apartment in Queens, the reality had settled like lead in my stomach. I was 28, a struggling novelist with one published book that barely sold, and now I was the pawn in a corporate fairy tale gone wrong. My roommate Jess took one look at my face and poured 2 glasses of cheap red wine. "Spill," she said, kicking off her sneakers. I told her everything except the part about Amber and me. The lesbian part. The part that would make my conservative parents disown me faster than the bankruptcy. Jess whistled low. A forced marriage to the Ice Queen herself? That's some plot twist, sure. But hey, maybe it'll inspire your next bestseller. If only she knew how close the truth was to the pages I'd hidden in my laptop. That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled up the manuscript on my screen, the one titled Chains of Silk, and scrolled to the chapter where the protagonist realizes the CEO's coldness is armor over a heart just as broken as her own. My cursor blinked at the end of the last sentence I'd written before deleting the file in a fit of rage months ago. Amber had chosen her empire over me. Now the empire was choosing me, and I had no idea which version of her would show up at the altar. The woman who once held me like I was the only real thing in her boardroom world. Or the CEO who fired people without blinking. Either way, the price was the same. My truth, my freedom, my chance to love openly in a city that still whispered judgments behind closed doors. I closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling, the first tear slipping free. This wasn't fiction anymore. This was my life, and the first chapter had just been written in ink I couldn't erase. The next morning brought the first confrontation. My mother called at dawn, her voice tight with that mix of excitement and control I'd grown up dreading. "The fitting for your dress is at noon, darling. Amber's assistant already approved the venue. Don't make this difficult." Difficult? As if marrying a woman I'd once begged to stay with me was just another errand. I hung up and headed to the office anyway, because calling in sick felt like surrender. Harrington Dynamics occupied the top 10 floors of a glass tower in Midtown, and my desk in the marketing department felt like enemy territory now. Colleagues whispered as I passed. They knew about the merger. They didn't know about the marriage yet. Amber's office door was open when I walked by, her silhouette framed against the skyline. She looked up and for a split second the mask slipped. Those eyes, the same ones that had looked at me with raw hunger in the back of her town car after a late-night strategy session. "Shiloh," she said, voice low enough that only I could hear. "My conference room. 5 minutes." It wasn't a request. I followed, heart hammering because running would only make the trap tighter. Inside, she closed the door and turned, arms crossed. "You wrote a novel about us." It wasn't a question. My blood ran cold. How did she know? I'd never shown it to anyone. "I have my sources," she continued, stepping closer until the scent of her cedarwood perfume wrapped around me like a memory. "You think this is punishment? It's survival. For both of us." Her words hung between us, heavy with everything we couldn't say in public. The affair that started with stolen glances at industry galas and ended in tears on her private jet. The nights when her cold exterior melted into something vulnerable, confessing how her own family had drilled into her that weakness, especially with another woman, was career suicide. "I ended it to protect you," she said now, voice cracking just once. "But the board wants a union. Your family's company is the perfect cover. And She stopped, jaw tightening. "I couldn't let you go." The confession should have felt like victory. Instead it felt like chains tightening. I backed away, tears burning. "You bought my life, Amber. Just like in the book." "But in the book, I walked away." She smiled, thin and sharp. "Then rewrite the ending, Shiloh. Because this time, I'm not letting you." I left her office reeling, the weight of her words pressing on my chest. Back at my desk, I opened a blank document and typed the first line of what might become my escape. She thought she could force the story, but the author always holds the pen. But even as I wrote, doubt crept in. My family was counting on this. Their home, their legacy. And deep down, a treacherous part of me wondered if Amber's love was worth the cage. The day stretched into meetings and emails, each one laced with the knowledge that my secret was no longer mine alone. By evening I was exhausted, the kind of tired that comes from carrying secrets too heavy for one person. Jess texted me pictures of wedding dresses, thinking it was a joke. I didn't laugh. Instead, I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Tomorrow the fittings began. Tomorrow the real plot started moving, and I had no idea if I was the hero or the cautionary tale. But as I stared at her across the conference table the next day during the dress fitting, the fabric swishing around my legs like a noose, I realized the novel had been wrong about one thing. Amber wasn't the villain. She was just as trapped as I was. The seamstress pinned the lace at my waist, chattering about timeless elegance, while Amber watched from the doorway, arms folded, her expression unreadable to everyone but me. I saw the flicker, the way her fingers tightened when our eyes met. My parents hovered nearby, Dad nodding approval like this was a normal transaction, Mom already planning the guest list that conveniently excluded anyone who might suspect the truth. "It'll be a beautiful union," Mom said, squeezing my shoulder too hard. "Amber's family has influence. This saves us all." Saves us. The phrase echoed in my head like a bad line from my manuscript. After the fitting, Amber pulled me aside in the private lounge, the door clicking shut behind us. "You haven't spoken to me since yesterday," she said, voice low. "Don't shut me out, Shiloh. Not now." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "You shut me out first, remember? The text. The silence. Then you swoop in with a contract like I'm property." Her face didn't change, but her eyes did, softening into the woman who'd once traced constellations on my skin with her fingertips and whispered about futures we couldn't have. My board discovered the manuscript. Someone leaked it from your cloud drive. They thought it was leverage. I turned it into an opportunity. The betrayal hit like a slap. My own words, the raw confessions I'd poured into that document, now ammunition in a corporate war. So you blackmailed my family into this? I whispered, stepping closer despite myself. No, she said, reaching out but stopping short of touching me. I offered them a way out that protected you too. The world isn't kind to women like us, Shiloh. One photo, one rumor, and my empire crumbles. Yours never even starts. We stood there in the soft light of the lounge, the city humming far below, and for a moment the years melted. I remembered the first time we met at a publishing conference, her as keynote speaker, me as a nervous attendee clutching my manuscript. The spark had been instant, dangerous. Late dinners turned into stolen weekends in her Hamptons house, where the walls were thick enough to hide moans and promises. Then the fear crept in. Her father's old school board, my mother's church group, the tabloids that loved tearing down powerful women. One slip, and we'd both lose everything. So she ended it. Now here we were, the ending rewritten by money and desperation. I still love you, she said quietly, the words landing like stones in still water. This marriage. It's the only way I can keep you close without destroying us both. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But the anger boiled over. Close? This is a cage, Amber. With my family watching every step, pretending it's normal. What happens when they find out it's real? When the press digs? She didn't flinch. We control the narrative. Like in your book. The CEO and the writer, united against the world. Her hand finally brushed mine, electric even through the tension. I pulled away, heart racing. Your book ended in tragedy. The protagonist chose freedom. Amber's smile was sad. Then change it. Or walk away now and watch your parents lose the house. Your choice. The door opened then, Mom calling my name, and the moment shattered. I stepped back into the role of dutiful daughter, but inside the conflict raged. Love or loyalty? Truth or survival? The week blurred into a series of events designed to sell the fairy tale. Bridal showers with Amber's associates. All women who eyed me with polite curiosity, none knowing the undercurrent. My brother pulled me aside one evening at dinner, his voice hushed. Sis, you sure about this? Amber's intense. And Dad's acting weird, like he's hiding something. I brushed it off, but the seed of doubt planted. Later that night, alone in my childhood bedroom, I dug into old emails. There it was, the original merger proposal from 6 months ago, right after Amber and I split. Had she planned this? The thought twisted like a knife. I texted her. Did you orchestrate the debt too? Her reply came instantly. No. But I used it. Come over. Talk. I shouldn't have gone. Her penthouse was the same, minimalist and cold, but the moment she opened the door, the air thickened. We sat on the terrace overlooking the river, wine untouched. I bought time for your family because I couldn't watch you struggle, she admitted. The novel was the catalyst. Reading it, it reminded me what we lost. Tears stung my eyes. You read my private pain and turned it into a business deal. She reached for my hand this time, and I let her. It was never just business. But the world forces us to pretend. Your parents would never accept us. Mine already threatened to cut me off years ago. The confession hung heavy. For the first time, I saw the cracks in her armor. The woman who'd built an empire to protect the girl who'd been shamed for loving differently. We didn't kiss. We didn't need to. The understanding passed between us, fragile and terrifying. But as I left at dawn, the doorman nodding politely, I felt the noose tighten. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Meeting with the lawyers tomorrow. Don't mess this up. The pressure was mounting, and my inner voice screamed to run. Yet Amber's words echoed. Rewrite the ending. Back home, I opened the laptop and added a new chapter to the manuscript. The protagonist didn't run. She fought. But fighting meant facing the betrayals I hadn't seen coming. My best friend from college, Lila, called the next day, her voice too bright. Heard about the wedding. Congrats, girl. But, is it real? I mean, you and Amber? The question froze me. How did she know details? The leak wasn't just the manuscript. Someone close was talking. The confrontation came at a family dinner Amber attended as the perfect fiancée. My mother praised her poise. My father toasted the merger. But when Amber excused herself, Lila cornered me in the kitchen. I saw the emails. Your novel. You two were together before. This is all a cover, isn't it? Her eyes held no judgment, but the fear did. If the press gets this, your family loses everything. I won't say anything. Yet. The betrayal sliced deep. Lila, who'd known me since freshman year, now holding my secret like leverage. I confronted Amber later in the car ride home. My friend knows. She's threatening exposure. Amber's jaw set. I'll handle it. But this is why we can't run, Shiloh. The truth binds us tighter than any contract. Her hand found mine in the dark, and for once I didn't pull away. The city lights streaked past, and I wondered if love in the shadows was better than none at all. By the end of the week, the invitations were printed, the press releases drafted. I stood in the mirror, dress half finished, and saw not a bride but a character in my own story, pages turning faster than I could control. The inner conflict tore at me daily. The girl who craved freedom clashing with the woman who still ached for Amber's touch. Family expectations pressed like invisible hands. Societal whispers about convenient marriages already circulated in boardrooms. And underneath it all, the moral question burned. Was staying a betrayal of self, or was running the true selfishness? The story was building, and the climax loomed closer with every fitted seam and signed document. I had no escape, but maybe, just maybe, I didn't want one anymore. The first public appearance as Amber's fiancé hit like a spotlight I never asked for. We attended a charity gala at the Met. Her hand light on my lower back as cameras flashed and questions flew about the whirlwind romance. I smiled until my cheeks ached, reciting the script we'd rehearsed. College acquaintances turned business allies turned soulmates. The lie tasted like ash. Amber played her part flawlessly. The cool CEO doting on her young writer bride, but her thumb traced circles on my spine, a secret code that said hold on. My parents beamed from the table, the debt papers already signed in their minds. Yet inside, the drama escalated when Lila cornered us near the bar. Cute story, she whispered to me while Amber fetched drinks. But I have screenshots. Pay me to stay quiet, or the tabloids get the lesbian angle by morning. Betrayal burned hot. Lila, the friend who'd cried with me after the breakup, now weaponizing our pain for cash. I pulled Amber aside in the coat room, voice shaking. She's blackmailing us. 50,000. Amber's eyes hardened to steel. I'll transfer it tonight. But this is the cost of our truth, Shiloh. Every step has a price. She wired the money without hesitation, her empire's resources shielding us again. But the act left me hollow. Was this protection or control? That night in her penthouse, after the gala, we sat on the couch, the city silent below. You didn't have to pay her, I said. Amber's laugh was bitter. Yes, I did. Because if the world learns I love a woman, the board votes me out. Your family loses the lifeline. We both pay. Her vulnerability cracked through. And for the first time since the contract, I leaned into her, our foreheads touching. No kiss, just the weight of shared secrets. The next confrontation came from my own family. Dad called me into his study the following weekend. The Long Island house creaking under the autumn wind. Your mother found some old emails on the cloud. About you and women. His face twisted with disappointment, not anger yet. This marriage fixes that. Amber is respectable. No more confusion. Confusion. The word sliced like the societal knife I'd feared since high school, when church sermons warned about alternative lifestyles. I stood there, 28 and still their little girl, and felt the pressure crush my ribs. It's not confusion, Dad. It's who I am. He waved it away. It's a phase. The wedding papers are final. Sign them or watch the foreclosure notices. The ultimatum hung moral quicksand. Choose authenticity and lose the roof over their heads, or swallow the lie and keep the peace. I signed, tears blurring the ink, hating myself for the trade-off. Amber sensed the shift when I arrived at her office Monday. Family again? She asked, closing the blinds. I nodded, spilling the conversation. Her response surprised me. Then we accelerate the plan. A small leak of our romance story to the press, controlled. Frame it as love conquering family doubts. Her strategy was cold logic, but her eyes held warmth. We spent the afternoon drafting press notes, our hands brushing over the laptop, old sparks reigniting in the quiet. By evening, the story hit outlets. Tech heiress and CEO tie the knot in merger romance. Comments flooded in, some praising the power couple, others speculating on convenience. One tweet from a conservative influencer called it another Hollywood sham hiding sin. The prejudice stung, but Amber pulled me close in her private elevator. They don't know us. Only we do. The inner awakening started small. Late one night, alone in my apartment, I reopened the novel and read the chapters aloud. The protagonist's doubts mirrored mine exactly. Family duty versus heart's truth. But in my story, she chose wrong and regretted it forever. I deleted the tragic ending and typed a new one. She stayed, not out of weakness, but because love in chains was still love. The words felt like rebellion. Yet doubt lingered. Was I rewriting for Amber or for myself? The following week brought more tests. My brother discovered the Lila payoff through a bank alert and confronted me at lunch. You're paying off friends now? What's really going on, sure? His loyalty cracked when I hesitated. If this is fake, tell me. I'll help you escape. But I couldn't. The web was too tight, betrayals layering like bricks in a wall I helped build. Amber and I met for dinner at a secluded Italian spot in the village, our first date, under the new public eye. Paparazzi lurked outside, but inside, candlelight softened her features. I read your updated manuscript, she admitted over pasta. The new ending. It's us. Her foot found mine under the table, a subtle anchor. We talked for hours, not about contracts but about the girls we'd been. Her hiding crushes in boarding school, me scribbling poems in journals my parents never saw. The conversation peeled back layers, exposing the moral gray area we'd both navigated. Staying means lying to the world, I said. Running means lying to myself. Amber nodded. Then we lie together until we don't have to. The decision felt like progress, but the cost loomed. Back home, another blow. Mom found the manuscript printout I'd left in my old room. This filth about two women? She hissed over the phone. Burn it, Shiloh. The wedding is in 3 weeks. No more of this nonsense. Her words echoed every sermon, every sidelong glance at pride parades I'd avoided. The family pressure peaked, forcing me to choose silence over honesty. I deleted the file from the cloud, but saved a copy on a USB, clutching it like a talisman. That night, Amber called. Come stay with me. The estate is ready. I went, suitcase in hand, crossing the threshold into her world. The penthouse felt less like a cage and more like a sanctuary. Her arms around me in the dark, the only truth that mattered. But sleep evaded me. The betrayals, the prejudices, the inner war, all built toward a breaking point I could feel approaching. The story's tension ratcheted higher when a rival board member leaked old photos of us at a conference. Arms linked too closely. Headlines screamed secret past exposed. Amber's team spun it as early friendship, but the damage was done. My parents demanded a meeting, faces pale. Fix this or the deal's off, Dad said. Amber stood firm beside me. It's real. Always was. Her declaration hung in the air, a risky truth bomb. I backed her, voice steady for the first time. It is real. And I'm not ashamed. The room went silent. The moral line crossed. Family shock turned to reluctant acceptance, but the price was paid in strained glances and whispered prayers. As we left, Amber squeezed my hand. One battle won. Yet the war raged on. And I wondered how many more trade-offs my heart could survive before the awakening fully claimed me. The Hamptons estate loomed like a gilded prison as the wedding date neared. Its manicured lawns and ocean views mocking the turmoil inside me. Amber had moved me in 2 weeks early under the guise of final preparations, but the real reason whispered in every shared glance. We needed the space to navigate the storm without prying eyes. My family visited daily, Mom adjusting flower arrangements with forced cheer, Dad reviewing contracts like they were salvation. The societal whispers had grown louder after the photo leak. Tabloids ran polls. Real romance or PR stunt? Conservative blogs called it the latest attack on traditional values. Each article chipped at my resolve, forcing me to question every choice. Was loving Amber worth the judgment that followed us like shadows? One evening, as the sun dipped into the Atlantic, Amber found me on the private beach, skipping stones with more force than grace. "You're pulling away again," she said, barefoot in the sand, suit jacket discarded. I turned, the wind tangling my hair. "The world hates us, Amber. My own mother won't look me in the eye anymore. And Lila's still out there with copies of everything." Her response was steady, the CEO mask slipping to reveal the woman who'd fought her own battles. "Then we make them see. The rehearsal dinner is tomorrow. We tell your family the full truth. No more half-lies." The suggestion terrified me. Coming out under this pressure felt like jumping from the estate's cliffs. But her hand in mine grounded me, a reminder of the nights we'd shared before fear won. "What if they walk away?" I asked. "Then we build our own family," she replied, voice soft. The promise sparked something new, an awakening that family ties weren't the only ones that mattered. The rehearsal dinner unfolded in the estate's grand hall, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over tables set for 50. My brother toasted awkwardly, Jess from my apartment gave a speech laced with knowing winks, and Amber's executives mingled with forced politeness. Then came the moment. Amber stood, clinking her glass. "Before we rehearse vows, there's something Shiloh and I need to share." The room hushed. She looked at me, and I nodded, heart in my throat. Our relationship started long before the merger. It was love, real and hidden, because the world made us hide it. Gasps rippled. My mother's face drained of color. Dad's fists clenched around his fork. "This isn't a business deal," I added, voice stronger than I felt. "It's us choosing each other despite everything." The silence stretched, then shattered. Mom stood, tears streaming. "How could you? After everything we've done for you." Her words carried the weight of years of Sunday sermons and family dinners where different was never discussed. Dad followed her out, muttering about lawyers. The betrayal cut deep, not from strangers but from blood. Amber pulled me aside as guests murmured, "They'll come around. Or they won't. Either way, you're not alone." Her embrace in the hallway was fierce, the first real one since the contract. We retreated to the master suite that night, the ocean waves crashing below. No words needed at first. We sat on the balcony, her head on my shoulder, and the moral dilemma crystallized. I'd traded family approval for this peace, and the cost was visible in my mother's empty chair at breakfast the next morning. But the inner shift happened gradually. I woke to Amber making coffee, humming an old song from our secret weekends, and realized the love wasn't the trap. The fear was. Yet the drama intensified when Lila showed up uninvited at the estate gates, demanding more money. "The story's worth millions now," she sneered through the intercom. Amber met her at the gate with security, but I insisted on facing her. "You were my friend," I said, voice steady. "This is how you repay years of trust." Lila's laugh was hollow. "Trust? You hid everything. Now I need the cash." The confrontation ended with Amber's lawyers issuing a cease and desist, but the damage lingered. Another betrayal from someone I'd trusted, reinforcing how society pitted us against each other. That afternoon, I sat with the revised manuscript, adding pages where the protagonist confronted her betrayer and chose forgiveness over revenge. The writing felt like therapy, each keystroke a step toward owning my narrative. Family reconciliation attempts faltered. Dad called, voice gruff. "We'll attend the wedding. For the business. But don't expect blessings." The conditional love stung, highlighting the prejudice I'd internalized for years. Amber and I spent evenings walking the beach, talking through the pain. "My father disowned me at 20 for the same reason," she confessed one night by the fire pit. "I built the company to prove him wrong. Now I'm proving it for us." Her vulnerability mirrored my own awakening. The CEO facade hid a woman who'd paid her own prices in silence. Our bond deepened in those quiet hours, decisions made not from pressure, but from mutual strength. We chose to keep the ceremony small, inviting only those who could accept the truth. The day before the wedding, a tabloid dropped a bombshell. Leaked excerpts from my novel, twisted to paint us as manipulative. Headline screamed, "Novelist's fantasy becomes forced marriage scam." Panic surged. My phone exploded with calls. Jess texted support, but the board threatened to pull the merger. Amber's response was swift. A press conference from the estate steps. "The novel is fiction inspired by love. Our marriage is real." She held my hand for the cameras, no more hiding. The act cost her investor confidence temporarily, but it solidified our front. That night, as rain pattered the windows, we lay awake discussing the ultimate trade-off. "If the company falls, we start over," she said. "Together." The words sealed something in me. The girl trapped in the novel was evolving into the woman writing her own rules. Yet sleep brought nightmares of empty altars and family rejection. Morning dawned with a surprise. Mom at the door, eyes red but determined. "I don't understand it all," she said, hugging me stiffly. "But I won't miss my daughter's day." The small concession felt like victory amid the losses. Amber watched from the stairs, a soft smile breaking her usual reserve. The pieces were shifting, confrontations yielding to fragile understanding. As I tried on the final dress, the reflection showed not a victim but a survivor. The price had been high, inner conflicts raging like the ocean outside, but the awakening was real. Love flawed and fought for, was rewriting every page. The wedding loomed, and with it, the chance to prove the story's ending was ours to claim. The morning of the wedding arrived with clear skies over the Hamptons, but the tension inside the estate crackled like the ocean waves. I stood in the bridal suite, the white lace dress hugging my frame, staring at my reflection while Amber waited downstairs in her tailored suit, the picture of composed power. My hands shook as I fastened the veil. Last night's rain had washed the grounds clean, but it couldn't cleanse the doubts still swirling. Dad had arrived early, his hug brief and formal. "For the family," he repeated, the words a reminder of the ongoing moral bargain. Mom fussed with my bouquet, her acceptance tentative but present. The societal storm hadn't died. Fresh articles questioned our sudden union, fueling online debates about authenticity versus convenience. Yet here we were, stepping into the light we'd once feared. The ceremony unfolded on the cliffside lawn, a small gathering of allies and reluctant relatives. Jess stood as my witness, her grin genuine. Amber's closest advisor served as hers, eyes wary but supportive. As the officiant spoke of commitment, I glanced at Amber, her blue eyes steady on mine. The vows came next, words we'd written together in the quiet nights before. Promises of partnership through prejudice, strength against betrayal, love without apology. When I slipped the ring on her finger, the metal cool against her skin, a weight lifted. This wasn't the forced plot from my novel. This was choice, deliberate and hard-won. The kiss that followed was soft, public for the first time, cameras clicking from the permitted press. Applause mixed with awkward silence from my side of the aisle, but it was real. The reception brought the next wave of confrontation. My brother pulled me aside near the bar, his face conflicted. "I get it now, sis. But Dad's still struggling." He asked if this was all for the money. The question reopened old wounds, the family pressure never fully gone. I answered honestly. "It started that way. But it's more now." His nod was slow, a small bridge built. Then Lila appeared at the gates, uninvited again, security blocking her. Amber handled it quietly, but the intrusion reminded me of the ongoing betrayals. "She won't stop until we cut ties completely," Amber murmured later, her arm around my waist during the first dance. The music swelled, our bodies close in a way that felt both new and familiar. "Then we do," I replied. The decision to sever the toxic tie was another awakening, choosing peace over endless defense. As night fell, the real drama peaked in the private study. Dad cornered us both, voice low. "The board's happy with the merger optics, but if this leaks further as what it is, we lose investors." The prejudice laid bare, his fear of association clashing with reluctant pride. Amber met his gaze. "Then we educate them. Or we walk away from the deal. Shiloh and I stand together." Her words echoed the moral core. Love over legacy. Dad softened slightly, the first crack in his stance. "Just be careful." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was progress, the trade-off of partial family ties for our truth. Mom joined us later, hugging Amber stiffly. "Take care of her." The moment carried the weight of years of unspoken tension, societal norms bending under pressure. In the quiet after guests left, Amber and I walked the beach, shoes off, hands linked. "We survived the day," she said, wind whipping her hair. "But the real work starts now. Living openly." I nodded, the inner conflict resolved in layers. The girl who'd written the tragic novel had traded fear for courage. Each decision costing pieces of old life but gaining authenticity. "No more hiding," I agreed. The stars above witnessed the vow, deeper than the legal one. Back in the suite, we sat by the fire, manuscript open between us. "Finish it," Amber urged. I typed the final chapter. The protagonist and CEO building a life beyond the plot, facing the world hand in hand. The words flowed, the story complete. Yet dawn brought one last twist. A call from Amber's estranged father. The voice cold over speakerphone. "The photos are everywhere. You've embarrassed the family name." The familiar rejection mirrored my own experiences, binding us tighter. Amber hung up calmly. He chose his world. We choose ours. The betrayal from blood again, but this time it fueled resolve. We spent the morning drafting our joint statement. A public affirmation of our love, inviting dialogue on acceptance. The act risked everything, the company shares dipping slightly, but the freedom felt worth the price. My family watched the news, mixed reactions flowing in texts. Dad's was simple. Proud in our way. The partial win marked the climax's resolution. Tensions easing into cautious hope. As we packed for a short honeymoon in Vermont, away from the spotlight, I reflected on the journey. The forced marriage had exposed every fracture. Inner doubts, family rifts, societal blades, moral gray zones. But each confrontation had forged us stronger. Amber caught my eye across the room, her smile genuine. "Ready to write the sequel?" she asked. I laughed, pulling her close. The novel's trap had become our foundation. No escape needed when the cage was one we built together. The story wasn't over, but the chapter of awakening was. We stepped into the car, the road ahead uncertain but ours. The Vermont cabin nestled in the mountains felt like a world apart from the Manhattan chaos we'd left behind. Amber and I spent the first days in quiet rhythm. Morning hikes through golden leaves. Evenings by the fireplace with coffee and conversation that peeled back every remaining layer. The wedding's adrenaline had faded, leaving space for the deeper truths. "I never thought I'd have this," she admitted one night, her head in my lap as rain pattered the roof. "Not after fighting my whole life to be the untouchable CEO." Her confession mirrored my own growth. The woman who'd scripted her escape in fiction had instead found it in reality. Through choices that demanded everything. Family texts trickled in, mom sending recipes with tentative love you notes, dad forwarding business updates without the old ultimatums. The prejudice lingered in occasional online comments, but we ignored them, focusing on the life we'd claimed. A call from Jess midweek brought the final loose end. "Lila's been arrested for extortion on another victim," she reported. "Your payoff bought time, but she's done." Relief washed over me. The last betrayal neutralized without further cost. Amber squeezed my hand across the table. One less shadow. The news closed a chapter, allowing us to breathe fully. We spent the afternoon in the nearby town, holding hands openly for the first time without glancing over our shoulders. Locals smiled, unaware of our story, and the normalcy felt revolutionary. Back at the cabin, I opened the laptop and published the completed novel under a pseudonym, dedicating it to the one who rewrote my ending. Amber read the final pages that night, eyes shining. "You did it." We did. The act symbolized the full circle, from trapped in fiction to authoring our truth. As the honeymoon wound down, we faced the return to New York with clear eyes. The company had stabilized, investors swayed by our unified front. My family planned a quiet dinner upon our return, the first step toward real integration. The moral dilemmas that once tore at me now felt resolved in hindsight. Staying wasn't weakness, it was strength forged in fire. Running would have spared short-term pain but cost the love that had awakened us both. Society's judgments remained, but we met them together. Our decisions no longer dictated by fear. On the drive back, Amber turned to me at a red light. "No regrets?" I smiled, the answer easy. "None. The price was high, but the reward is us. The city welcomed us with its usual rush, but our penthouse felt like home now. We unpacked, shared a quiet meal, and planned the next steps. Joint projects blending her business acumen with my writing. A foundation for LGBTQ youth navigating similar pressures. The work ahead carried its own tensions, but the foundation was solid. My brother visited first, hugging us both without reservation. "You two make sense," he said simply. Mom followed days later, bringing flowers and awkward but genuine questions. The healing was slow, imperfect, but real. The novel's success brought interviews where we spoke openly, turning personal drama into broader dialogue. Societal change felt distant, but our corner of it shifted. One evening, overlooking the skyline from the terrace, Amber pulled me close. "The story started with a contract. It ends with choice." I nodded, the full weight of our journey settling peacefully. Every confrontation, every betrayal, every inner storm had led here. Two women who refused to let the world write their plot. The awakening was complete. We had paid the prices, made the controversial calls, and emerged stronger. As the lights of the city twinkled below, I whispered the truth we'd earned. This is our forever. The future stretched open, no more traps, only the life we'd fought to claim. Was it right for Shiloh to embrace the forced marriage and rewrite her story with Amber? Or should she have chosen escape despite the devastating costs to family and stability?